This is the GARIS Masculist MGTOW flyers. That is 2 3-page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is flyer number 107. Just a minute, I forgot to go to the next one. Bear with me. So going from the previous one, scrolling a bit. It's entitled, it's fly number 107, and it's entitled, What's the Next Step? And the fly itself, what's the next step? Prominent MGTOWs like Thinking Ape, Sandman, Turd Flanking Monkey, etc. keep churning out YouTube videos, so the MGTOW /masculist ideas are getting out there. This flyer asks, what's next? What's likely to happen next? And what is desirable that should happen next? I think the next thing to happen, and it's already starting, is that women are reacting. The percentage of women listening to Sandman's videos keeps climbing, he says in one of his videos. This is not surprising, since the MGTOW message is profoundly threatening to a fluffy. A fluffy, a traditional woman who expects to be able to parasite off a man's money, takes it for granted that in her later 20s or 30s she will find some manslave who will pay for her to live in a middle-class house with her kids, and later if she gets bored with him, she knows she can use the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts to extract child support and alimony from him so she can continue her parasitism. MGTOW practice plus masculist labelling and finger-pointing at fluffies is deeply threatening to fluffies. Most women are fluffies, maybe not consciously, but they are in practice for the simple reason that most young women at high school are fluffy crappers. That is, they study fluffy crap, so that when they go to university, they're forced to continue to study fluffy crap, because they are excluded from the FIP, financially independent person, majors. For example, the STEM fields, STEM, science, tech, engineering, math, and the professions, because they do not have the prerequisites of math and sciences that they need to have studied in high school. So they graduate with non-FIP diplomas that the economy does not value highly and hence pays poorly, whereas a STEM major walks into a job and immediately starts using the skills he picked up at college. So these fluffy crappers, the majority of women, will inevitably become fluffies in their 30s when their biological clock starts ticking hard and they realise that they're too poor to be able to afford to pay for a middle-class house to raise their kids in on their own. So they look around for some sucker manslave to do that for them. The problem for such fluffy manslavers is that the supply of robot males, that is manslave dupes, is drying up. Too many men are waking up that the traditional manslave role of the male sucks, stinks. These men are learning that a married father has roughly a 1 in 4 chance of being financially massacred in the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts, and consider these odds as totally unacceptable and decide to boycott marriage and paternity. Since most women are fluffy crappers, most women become fluffies, and hence, as they become increasingly conscious that men refuse to be manslaves to them, these fluffies are really starting to shit in their panties as they become brutally aware that 1. They will not have a kid, and 2. Even if they do, they'll be poor and not be able to find a manslave to pay for them. Men have gone on strike regarding supporting fluffies financially. Women are increasingly going through an existential crisis as they become conscious that they can no longer rely on men to be their manslaves. This will force women to become FIPs and to stop being fluffy crappers at high school and college. They will have to be socialised as girls just as much as boys to be FIPs, that is, career competent, that is, feel obliged to study STEM majors at high school, the professions, that is, no calculus, no baby. As large numbers of women wake up to the man strike, they should be pushed by masculist MGTOWs to put political pressure on the gender politicians to mend fair the gender laws, especially regarding divorce. This will be very difficult for fluffies because in the short term, fluffies actually benefit from the financial massacring of their ex-husbands. They get his money and his house and especially his kids. But this short-term benefit has a real sting in the tail. With millions of men being financially massacred in the divorce courts, men are shying away from marriage and paternity. Fluffies now, in capital letters, just can't find a manslave, aka in fluffy speak, good man. So the young women will increasingly learn to hate their older generation of women who have created this man shortage for them. These younger, manless women should also be pressured by MGTOW/Masculists to lobby the gender politicians to men-fair the gender laws by combining forces with the Masculists who simultaneously are threatening the gender politicians. Quote, if you genocidal criminals don't men-fair the gender laws, we MGTOW/Masculists will continue to wipe out the population until you have no choice and you give us men what we want. If you don't, then in time the whole crashing population will be screaming for your blood. But what about men? What should men's next step be? I suggest it should be the formation of consciousness-raising groups, that is, men's lib groups in high schools and especially at universities. Actually, such groups are more needed in the high school because it's at that age that most of the fluffy crapper damage is done. But the intellectual environment is richer and more conducive to idea propagation at universities. So college men's lib groups should be set up to educate both sexes on campus in the following main MGTOW/Masculist ideas. Teach men that marriage is toxic due to the toxicity of the fluffy feminist-dominated divorce courts. Advise men not to marry, not to have kids, and to spend their money on themselves. Teach men that if they want regular sex, to twef, that is, sex only a fit woman who has her own apartment, so that when the relationship fails, the man can return to his own apartment cost-free. Teach men the advantages of spending their money on themselves. For example, that they can ARC, that's ARC, after retirement careering, early in life, for example in their 40s, then spending the second half of their lives doing what they love. No longer being a wage slave, and definitely not being a manslave to a bloody fluffy. Teach women about the above MGTOW/Masculist ideas. Tell women that 70% of young men under 35 in the US and Japan refuse to marry and have kids. Tell women that they will not have babies until the gender laws are made men fair. Tell women that they won't be even fucked if they're not fit. MGTOW/Masculists refuse to have anything to do with fluffies, whom they treat as the enemy to be wiped out. Teach women that they must study fit majors at high school and college, otherwise they will become fluffies and hence be rejected by men. Tell women to help the MGTOW/Masculists to pressure the gender politicians to men-fair the gender laws, otherwise the population gets wiped out. Tell women to help the MGTOW/Masculists to tell journalists about MGTOW/Masculism, because it is in women's self-interest to see the gender laws made men fair, because if that does not happen, women won't have babies, they won't have husbands, they won't even have penises. So summarising, I think the next step for men after the YouTube Masculist MGTOW video production phase should be the setting up of men's lib groups at high schools and colleges. There are enough MGTOW/Masculists out there now for discussion groups to be set up all over. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name de Garis Masculist MGTOW Flyers. Ciao.